So I made Ginny write her own farewell on the wall and come down here to wait. She struggled and cried and became very boring, but there isn't much life left in her. She put too much into the diary, into me. Enough to let me leave its pages at last. And I have been waiting for you to appear since we arrived here. I knew you'd come. I have many questions for you, Harry Potter. Like what? Harry spat, fists still clenched. Well, said Riddle, smiling pleasantly, how is it that a baby with no extraordinary magical talent managed to defeat the greatest wizard of all times? How did you escape with nothing but a scar, while Lord Voldemort's powers were destroyed? There was an odd red gleam in his hungry eyes now. What do you care how I escaped? Said Harry slowly. Voldemort was after your time. Voldemort, said Riddle softly, is my past, present, and future, Harry Potter. He pulled Harry's wand from his pockets and began to trace it through the air, writing 3 shimmering words, Tom Marvolo Riddle. Then he waved the wand once, and the letters of his name rearranged themselves. I am Lord Voldemort. You see, he whispered, it was a name that I was already using at Hogwarts. To my most intimate friends only, of course. You think that I was going to use my filthy muggle father's name forever? I, in whose veins runs the blood of Salazar Slytherin himself, through my mother's side, I keep the name of a foul common muggle who abandoned me even before I was born, just because he found out that that his wife was a witch. No, Harry, I fashioned myself a new name, a name I knew wizards everywhere would one day fear to speak, when I had become the greatest sorcerer in the world. Harry's brain seemed to have jammed. He stared numbly at Riddle, at the orphan boy who had grown up to murder Harry's own parents and so many others. At last he forced himself to speak. You're not, he said, his quiet voice full of hatred. Not what? Snapped Riddle. Not the greatest sorcerer in the world, said Harry, breathing fast. Sorry to disappoint you, and all that, but the greatest wizard in the world is Albus Dumbledore. Everyone says so. Even when you were strong, you didn't dare try to take over at Hogwarts. Dumbledore saw through you when you were here at school, and he still frightens you now, wherever you're hiding these days. The smile had gone from Riddle's face, to be replaced by a very ugly look. Dumbledore's been driven out of this castle by the mere memory of me, he hissed. He's not as gone as you may think, Harry retorted. He was speaking at random, wanting to scare Riddle, wishing rather than believing it to be true. Riddle opened his mouth, but froze. Music was coming from somewhere. Riddle whirled around to stare down the empty chamber. The music was growing louder. It was eerie, spine-tingling, unearthly. It lifted the hair on Harry's scalp and made his heart feel as though it was swelling to twice its normal size. Then, as the music reached such a pitch that Harry felt it vibrating inside his own ribs, flames erupted at the top of the nearest pillar. A crimson bird the size of a swan had appeared, piping its weird music to the vaulted ceiling. It had a glittering golden tail, as long as a peacock's, and gleaming golden talons, which were gripping a ragged bundle. A second later, the bird was flying straight at Harry. It dropped the ragged thing it was carrying at his feet, then landed heavily on his shoulder. As it folded its great wings, Harry looked up and saw that it had a long, sharp golden beak and beady black eyes. The bird stopped singing. It sat still and warm next to Harry's cheek, gazing steadily at Riddle. That's a phoenix, said Riddle, staring shrewdly back at him. Fox? Harry breathed, and he felt the bird's golden claws squeeze his shoulder gently. And that, said Riddle, now eyeing the ragged thing that Fox had dropped, that's the old-school sorting hat. So it was. Patched, frayed, and dirty, the hat lay motionless at Harry's feet. Riddle began to laugh again. He laughed so hard that the dark chamber rang with it, as though 10 Riddles were laughing at once. This is what Dumbledore sends his defender, a songbird in an old hat. Do you feel brave, Harry Potter? Do you feel safe now? Harry didn't answer. He might not see what use Fox and the Sorting Hat were, but he was no longer alone, and he waited with mounting courage for Riddle to stop laughing. To business, Harry, said Riddle, still smiling broadly. Twice in your past, in my future, we have met, and twice I failed to kill you. How did you survive? Tell me everything. The longer you talk, he added softly, the longer you stay alive. Harry was thinking fast, weighing his chances. Riddle had the wand. He, Harry, had Fox and the Sorting Hat, neither of which would be much good in a duel. It looked bad, all right, but the longer Riddle stood there, the more life was dwindling out of Ginny, and in the meantime, Harry noticed suddenly Riddle's outline was becoming clearer and more solid. It had to be a fight between him and Riddle, better sooner than later. No one knows why you lost your powers when you attacked me, said Harry abruptly. I don't know myself, but I know why you couldn't kill me, because my mother died to save me. My common muggle-born mother, he added, shaking with suppressed rage. She stopped you killing me, and I've seen the real you. I saw you last year. You're a wreck. You're barely alive. And that's where all of your power got you. You're in hiding. You're ugly. You're foul. Riddle's face contorted. Then he forced it into an awful smile. So, your mother died to save you? Yes, that is a powerful counter-curse. I can see now. There is nothing special about you after all. I wondered, you see, because there are strange likenesses between us, Harry Potter. Even you must have noticed. Both half-bloods, orphans, raised by muggles, probably the only two Parselmouths to come out of Hogwarts since the great Salazar Slytherin himself. We even looked something alike, but after all, it was merely a lucky chance that saved you from me. That's all I wanted to know. Harry stood tense, waiting for Riddle to raise his wand, but Riddle's twisted smile was widening again.